Kylie Jenner reaction to Travis Scott's Astroworld nightmare will shock you. Welcome back to Binge-Worthy Network. A terrible tragedy just happened at the Astroworld concert, and millions are shocked and devastated, including Kylie Jenner. But before we jump in, hit that like and subscribe button to be notified and updated on the latest Hollywood drama and news. While we try to entertain our loyal subscribers and viewers with fun content, a terrible tragedy has recently occurred that we must talk about. On November the 7th, 8 people, including young adults and teenagers, were unfortunately killed during an Astroworld concert. The deaths were a result of a massive crowd stampede that caused not only multiple serious injuries, but caused fatalities as well. The horrible incident occurred during the Astroworld Festival in Houston, Texas. As news outlets all over the world shared, here is what happened during the tragic concert event. According to New York Times, Houston. Panic and then desperation spread through the crowd of 50,000, mostly young people, just as the popular hometown rapper they had come to see, Travis Scott, took the stage Friday night. It came like a wave, an unstoppable movement of bodies that could not be held back. Some collapsed, others fought for air. Concertgoers lifted up the unconscious bodies of friends and strangers and surfed them over the top of the crowd, hoping to send them to safety. Others shouted out for help with CPR and pleaded for the concert to stop. It kept going. In the end, 8 people died, ranging in age from 14 to 27, according to city officials. Hundreds more were treated for injuries at a field hospital at the concert venue, the NRG Park in Houston, or at local hospitals. Among those treated at a hospital was a 10-year-old child. The event appeared to be one of the deadliest crowd control disasters at a concert in the United States in many years. But that's not all that was reported. According to concertgoers and eyewitnesses, Travis Scott continued to perform while these deaths were occurring right under his nose. Questions raised by concertgoers and local officials included whether there had been adequate security and medical personnel on hand for the event, and whether the concert could have been shut down sooner. Mr. Scott continued playing through his set of music, urging the crowd on at times, at other times pausing to acknowledge that something appeared to be wrong, including when an ambulance entered the crowd around 9:30 p.m. For several seconds, the music appeared to stop. Mr. Scott looked towards the crowd and appeared to ask what was happening. Away from the stage, chaotic scenes were playing out. Another element of the investigation, according to a county official, would be whether too many people had been in attendance. Early in the day, some had rushed the gate, and some people may have entered without tickets. At the news conference, officials said the concert venue had not been overcrowded. It was not clear how much of the chaos could be seen from the stage or when concert organizers became aware of a serious problem beyond the usual number of injuries that can take place at any large event. But the Houston police chief, Troy Finner, said that officials worried that cutting off the concert could make the situation worse. After crowd control issues at the Astroworld Festival in 2019, officials and concert organizers increased the security this year. Ms. Hidalgo said, with more than 500 event security staff members, 91 armed private security officers, and 76 Houston Police Department officers on hand. From fellow concertgoers who were there to witness the horrific incident to police officers and detectives, many began sharing their insight. As it was reported by news outlets, it was like hell, said Nick Johnson, 17, who still had his concert bracelet on as he spoke on Saturday morning. Everyone was just in the back, trying to rush to the front. People were literally grabbing and pinching at my body, trying to get up from the ground, said Chris Lee, 23. Adding that he'd lost contact with his friends as he tried to make it out of the crowd. I was fighting for my life. There was no way out. Young people with bright futures. Those were the people who were at the event. Perhaps the plans were inadequate. Perhaps the plans were good, but they weren't followed. Perhaps it was something else entirely, said Lena Hidalgo, the top executive for Harris County, which includes Houston. Soon after the heartbreaking incident, both Travis Scott and Kylie Jenner went on to post their statements on social media platforms. Left shocked and devastated, here is what the parents of Stormy Webster had to share about this recent tragedy. Travis shared on Twitter, "I'm absolutely devastated by what took place last night. My prayers go out to the families and all those impacted by what happened at Astroworld Festival. Houston PD has my total support as they continue to look into the tragic loss of life. I am committed to working together with the Houston community to heal and support the families in need. Thank you to Houston PD, Fire Department, and NRG Park for their immediate response and support. Love you all. The father of Stormy Webster also posted a minute-and-a-half video on his Instagram stories. In the black and white video, Travis is trying to make sense of what had just happened and how he can help the officials to solve what was the cause of the tragedy. Along with the Astroworld performer, Kylie Jenner also shared her statement on her Instagram and Twitter. The Kylie Cosmetics CEO expressed her devastation while also confirming she and Travis had no idea what was happening in the crowd. Travis and I are broken and devastated. My thoughts and prayers are with all who lost their lives, were injured, or affected in any way by yesterday's events. And also for Travis, who I know cares deeply for his fans and the Houston community. I want to make it clear we weren't aware of any fatalities until the news came out after the show, and in no world would have continued filming or performing. I'm sending my deepest condolences to all the families during this difficult time, and will be praying for the healing of everyone who has been impacted. While the Keeping Up with the Kardashian star denied knowing the reality, Travis Scott was apparently warned about the massive crowd at the Houston concert. In a statement shared by the Houston police chief, Troy Finner, Stormy's father actually knew about the dangers of hosting such an enormous concert in Houston. As shared by Mr. Dinner, I met with Travis Scott and his head of security for a few moments last Friday prior to the main event. I expressed my concerns regarding public safety and that in my 31 years of law enforcement experience, I've never seen a time with more challenges facing citizens of all ages, to include a global pandemic and social tension throughout the nation. I asked Travis Scott and his team to work with HPD for all events over the weekend and to be mindful of his team's social media messaging on any unscheduled events. The meeting was brief and respectful, and a chance for me to share my public safety as chief of police. As you can imagine, people from all over the world were left stunned and shocked by this November incident. Not only were fans of the artist trying to understand what had just occurred, but thousands began reaching out to the families of those who passed away. Many were simply left confused as to how Travis Scott didn't listen to the suggestions brought on by the Houston police chief, Troy Finner. Here is what the general public is expressing on social media platforms and Twitter. Even before the tragic stampede that killed 8 at Houston's Astroworld Festival, Travis Scott had a history of inciting fans into intense, reckless behavior at concerts. It's part of his allure, but now the consequences are just devastating. This MF opened his Notes app and apologized. You killed 8 people and injured about 100 plus people, and you're just opening your Notes app? Apologize from your mouth, not your Notes app. You made people die. You need to talk instead of opening an app. Travis Scott is seen on camera refusing to stop a show as people were literally crushed and killed in an uncontrolled crowd in Houston tonight. Time for every last person involved with #AstroWorldFest to be criminally liable and sued out the arse for those deaths. I want to know the people who killed the 8 lives at Astroworld. Why haven't we seen any of those names? They should be charged. Everyone is talking about Travis Scott, but who was in the crowd acting that ridiculous? 8 people were killed at Astroworld. 8 effing people. The youngest aged 14. Hundreds more injured. And Travis Scott is saying if he knew what was going on, he'd stop the show. People were climbing onto the camera set, shouting to stop the show because people were dying in the crowd. We share our condolences to the heartbroken families who have lost their children, brothers, and sisters. Do you think Travis Scott was to blame for these horrific deaths? Should the concert have been stopped at the first sight of danger? What did you think of Travis's apology and Kylie's statement? Let us know in the comments below.